Hello everyone, my name is Lucian. Most of you know me from Twitter as Triangle Investor. In today's edition of CEO and Market Expert Interviews, I'm glad to host John DeJoia, the Director for Strathmore Plus Uranium. John, it is great to have you in my show for the first time. Welcome.
Great to be on. Thank you.
Thanks. John, let's start with you sharing with my audience your origin story. I read that you are directly responsible for 22 million pounds found of uranium in Wyoming. Please, John, give us your uranium pass. It is interesting, I believe.
Okay, I'll try to take 52 years or so and put them in a couple of minutes.
Okay.
I'm a graduate of the University of Wyoming, which happens to be located about an hour and a half from the projects where I mined all this ore. And when I got out of school, things were a little slow. And I went back to see my folks, and I was there. And a gentleman I knew said, "Hey, we've got a job opening out here. Why don't you come out?" And I
Mhm.
said, "Sure, that'd be great. I'm looking forward to it." So I hired on in January of 1972. There was a big storm. I couldn't really get out there till March. I showed up at the offices in Shirley Basin for Utah International, and I was on the night shift. I was going to be a miner,
Mhm.
and I got out there, and the boss met me in the starting shack and said, "There's your truck out there. Go to the pit and mine ore tonight." And I,
Real.
fresh out of school, hadn't seen uranium ore except in the lab. And they said, "Anytime this meter," and he hands me a Geiger counter, "reads '05, you put a flag in the ground." And he said, "If you need anything, call the pit boss and he'll get you something." He says, "Other than that, you get warm in the truck and come up at the end of your shift." Well, I didn't know how to run a Mack truck, a 15-ton truck. Never been in one actually like that. Went to the pits, 20 below zero, started mining. Anyway, I worked in Shirley Basin for Utah International for about 10 years, and we averaged around 2 million pounds a year, sometimes more, sometimes less. I was the pit geologist in the pit every day, unless there was something else that I had to do. And I did that for, like I said, about 10 years. I got transferred over to the Hils area for the same company. And my first project was to go to the Big Eagle mine. We were having some problems with the mining and try to sort them out. I did that. And in the meantime, in the 80s, you're probably aware the industry started going downhill very rapidly. And I could see the handwriting on the wall that, there weren't enough jobs for everybody. So I kind of put my name on the street, and one of our adjacent property owners said, "Hey, how'd you like to be my chief geologist?" I said, "Sure." So I went to work for Federal American Partners. We had open pit, underground. I guess I should back up. At Shirley Basin, I actually mined through an area of previous solution mining in situ. Mined it by open pit. Did a core study first. Then we went in after we discovered there was enough ore to mine, and did the mining through that area for about 2 years. So I learned the effects of in situ recovery firsthand. Feet in the dirt, hands in the dirt, samples to the lab every day. Anyway, my next job, I went over to the gas hills for Federal American Partners. And we were shutting down. We went through all the properties, got them ready to close up, put that to bed. And then I went on an UMTRA, uranium mill tailings job, and I was the project engineer for that. I had designed it for American Nuclear, where I was working. We didn't get the bid, but our neighbors Carbide did. And I did that for a few years. Never getting out of the uranium industry. I have never been able to get out. I went over to the Idaho National Engineering Lab
Yeah.
and was construction manager for the fuel processing restoration center. In other words, we were going to build a facility to reprocess uranium ore. Well, you probably know that didn't go over too well.
Yeah.
The cost overruns were horrible. We had a great design. Anyway, from there, I went on to Los Alamos National Laboratory to do hazardous waste and nuclear waste remediation. And I headed up the operations for Morrison Knudsen there. Retired there, about 12, more than that, 20 years ago. And I got a call from a friend of mine, a geologist, and said, hey, I need you. We're starting back up. Wonderful. So I'm back in mining from restoration, and did that with Strathmore Minerals. And Dev was in charge of that. He was the CEO.
Yeah.
And got to know Dev I worked there for about 10 years also. And we finally divested of that. We took on some great partners. We were partnered, the group I headed up was the New Mexico operations. We had a great teammate there, Sumitomo Corporation, one of the biggest corporations in the world. And in Wyoming, we were partnered with KEPCO. Anyway, I retired there when we divested. And about 2 years ago, Dev called me and said, what in the world are you doing? And I said, well, not a lot, enjoying retirement. He says, you're too young to retire. Let's form a new company in Wyoming. You know, I'm having a good time. Dev's a great guy. In fact, I call him Mr. Uranium. You want to know anything about uranium, you call Dev. Yeah. Anyway, it was my specialty, and we put together a Strathmore Plus. And in the meantime, he says, you know, we need you to do this. And I said, Dev, I'm really not willing or able to work in the field every day the rest of my life, how long that may be. He says, then find me a geologist. So we found Mr. Osier as our vice president. He said, and we need properties. Well, in talking with Terrence, found out he had some of the properties that used to border us. He acquired them after we divested with Strathmore. Mm-hmm. He worked at Strathmore also. So we got those properties, and Dev said, we need some more. And I said, well, there's a property in Shirley Basin, the Agate property. I said, I watched them drill there for years. I know there's ore there. I don't know if any of the land's open. Well, Terrence went out, and lo and behold, some of the land was open. We picked that up. And then I remembered the Night Owl property. When I was a young geologist, I had to guide them up to their property with the drill rig. And anyway, they had dropped it in the mid-'80s. We picked that up also. So here I am today.
I have to say one word, and that is wow. That is very impressive background and rich history, and thank you for sharing that. So John, basically you are all your life in Wyoming. Tell me, please.
Basically.
Yeah. Wyoming is definitely one of the best places for uranium company to be in the world. But please explain to an average investor who entered the uranium space yesterday, why is Wyoming considered one of the best uranium jurisdictions in the world?
Well, the first reason, it kind of goes along with the old saying, if you want to shoot an elephant, go where they live. You know, you got to hunt elephants in elephant country. And Wyoming was the second biggest producer in the old days. New Mexico was the first biggest producer. And I've got lots of experience down here, lots of experience in Wyoming. The other part of Wyoming that makes it a leading target, or made it a leading target for Dev and I, was the fact that there is ore out there. There are areas that haven't been explored and they haven't been taken, and that's a big plus. However, the really biggest part is the political, cultural environment to the state. The people, the regulators, they're there to help you, not to throw up roadblocks.
Yeah.
And that is such a big part of this. When it takes 5 to 9 years to permit a mine, you really need some cooperation. And that's what Wyoming brings, along with the ore.
Yeah, that is the probably the best thing about Wyoming. I agree. John, I want to hear your thoughts about the U.S. House passed a bill banning uranium imports from Russia. What will the ban, when we see the first effects of the ban, mean for the uranium market? And especially, do you believe that the biggest benefit from that will be for the U.S. domestic uranium companies with real assets like yours?
Well, the first obvious reaction, I would say, would be we'll see an increase in price, probably see quite an increase for a while, and it's going to send a signal to the industry.
Yeah.
Time to quit playing. Let's get out, drill it, develop it, permit it, and get it in the pipeline. And it's so important. You know, the last quote boom upshoot when we first started about 206 or so, you know, we got up over $100, but nobody was prepared. No permits were really coming into play. And it took a while for the ISR people to get on the path to production. We were trying to do conventional mining. And, you know, that's just such an obstacle in New Mexico. We had a great property here at Roca Honda, but regardless, the first thing I would expect to see is a little escalation in price, and then a realization by the companies that, oh my gosh, we're still a little behind the eight ball.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few that are ready to roll.
Yeah.
Our neighbors, UR Energy, right beside us in Shirley Basin, bless them. They're on top of this. They're in production out in the Red Desert. They're going to have a great project. And therein lies probably our success. If we can put together a working document to tie in with their capacity, it will save us years. And, other people that can tag on to existing permits will have the same ability. And there just aren't very many right now. But that's the first thing I expect to see, a flurry of activity, an increase in the price. And with that will come a realization that, geez, we're not a whole lot of people are ready. And thank gosh that Dev has had our feet in the water here.
Yeah.
They've been working on budgets and plans. Terrence is doing drilling. We've got preliminary type environmental work going on this next year. We hope to get there pretty quickly.
Yeah, definitely. Let's discuss your projects. You have 3 projects in your portfolio. That is Night Owl, Agate, and Beaver Rim. Let's start with Agate. I want to touch on the news release where company stated that it has hit uranium mineralization on 93% of holes drilled on the property. So let's try to bring that perspective for, let's say, new uranium investor. What is the significance of that, and what other conclusion can be drawn from this drilling program?
Well, I think the first thing, without sticking my neck out too far, potentially it's an ISR project. It's quite shallow. We're talking less than 150 feet deep. It's within, I don't want to say a stone's throw, but very close to a paved public highway. Utilities are in the area. It's the second largest Wyoming mining district, mining district. UR Energy is right across the highway from us. When Terrence was able to pick this land up, I remembered going over there as a young man, and I have a friend that worked over there on the drill rigs. And I'd look at the samples from a distance. He wouldn't let me inspect them, but I went over at night and on the weekends, and I knew we had typical roll front. I just didn't remember where it was in relation to everything, but we found some old maps. We have approximately 500 to 600 old Kerr-McGee holes on our property. Well, we didn't know all the coordinates, but I said, Terrence, let's plan this out. And Terrence picked a spot, went out, and the first day we hit mineralization. And I said, well, let's move away. And he moved 800 feet
Mm-hmm.
and had the same grade basically in thickness. I said, oh boy.
Yeah.
And if we'd have wanted to put in 100% mineralized holes, we probably could have done it. But we kind of needed to see the boundaries on this thing. So we have 3 holes that didn't hit, which were very helpful. It told us where we needed to stay
Yeah.
inside. We're hoping to generate a draft resource this winter. And we've got approximately 400 holes planned for next year. We're going to get an exploration permit after the first of the year, probably. Right now, nobody's working. All the state offices or people are on vacation.
Yeah.
We've got 400 holes in our mines right now. A few of those are going to be core holes. Some will undoubtedly have to be monitoring wells. We need to find out where our excursions would go should they move off our property. And those will definitely be 0-0 holes.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we won't have 93% mineralized holes this year. We've got some other work to do. We need to do some hydrology. It appears to be saturated, 150 feet deep. You can almost run a garden hose down the hole
Yeah.
for casing. I mean, this is amazing. And nice grades, nice thicknesses, perfect for ISR in a perfect geologic environment. The permeability, the porosity, the transmissivity should be relatively close to what we experienced just across the highway a couple miles away, where I open pitted the same type of material.
Yeah.
So we're very optimistic here and excited.
Yeah, I believe so. Let me just quick return to UR Energy agreement. You have a working agreement with UR Energy. How is that cooperation going, and what are the biggest benefits besides the one you mentioned? Uh, there is a financial component over here. I mean, you could let's say you come in production, you will not have to build an infrastructure, but rather use the one from your energy, right? That will significantly lower your future capex and price of production.
Yes,
Please.
it would lower the cost for us, but more importantly, it chops a lot out of the time frame.
Yeah.
Anybody who's watched the uranium industry for a while knows that we have highs and lows, and you got to go
Mm-hmm.
through them.
Yeah.
And it's a function of time, but we've got some things working in our favor this time. One of them, this is a good clean energy. I've always been a proponent, and now it looks like the public's catching up to Dev and I.
Yeah.
So we're happy about that. But we're very excited. We save time, we save money. The thought process, these folks, I don't know if John Cash is the CEO there. Wonderful gentleman, good scientist. We just toured their project out in the Red Desert. Very well done, very well executed, good staff members. We're excited about doing work with them. I hope we are able during the winter months. We've both been so busy, we just can't sit down. We've met a couple of times. We agree in principle to do it. We just got to do it. But anyway, that's a big plus.
Definitely. Having your energy as your neighbor and on your team, so to say, it is a great benefit. I agree. Let's touch on the Beaver Rim. What is the current status of that project?
Beaver Rim is basically in limbo right now. We were going to drill it this fall. Terrence got in the truck and went out with the drillers. They couldn't get there. The previous winter and spring had washed out the roads. And I'm not
Roads.
talking little ruts. I'm talking lose your truck type damage. And of course, we had to go to the BLM and make sure we were agreeable to them letting us go out and do the work. So the very first thing we'll do there when we go out this year is do some road construction, we've got to repair, and it's going to be pretty extensive. Will probably take several weeks to get the roads in shape, get the drill rigs in.
When do you expect to start repairing the roads?
Pardon?
When do you expect to start repairing the roads?
Well, it's weather dependent, and if we have an easy winter, we could be out there April, May.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
If it's a bad winter, it could be after that. Now we do have a sage grouse issue. We can't drill till after mid-July anyway on Beaver Rim. So regardless if we could go out and fix the road right now, we can't get there, and then we risk having the roads washed out again.
Okay.
And they did just have a storm, but we're excited about Beaver Rim. That was a property out of my past. We had it at Strathmore. We also had parts of that when I worked for Federal American Partners. And there are two shafts and a big ore body that parallel our property. And as a young geologist, mid-30s, early 40s, when I was director of technical services and head geologist out there, we could never find the money to go up and work on the rim to drill it because we had 40 million pounds down below the rim.
Mm-hmm.
We had a shaft in ore at 985 feet, which I've been in, sampled the ore, and then the industry shut down in the 80s. So we never got to do anything with it, but we've got a very high grade, extensive deposit parallel to us. So we're excited. This area was the area that the mineralizing solutions moved through in the initial deposit of the gas hills.
You expect to drill some 30 holes when you start the drilling campaign over there. So it will be smaller than Agate, but it will prove you it will show you the future heading for the projects, right?
Well, they're 5 to 7 times as deep.
Okay.
We're talking 750 to 1,000 feet deep. Some of it's very tough drilling. I have drilled up in there. Terrence has drilled up in there. The one hole that when we were with Strathmore that he was able to drill, I think he had 2 or 3 stacked roll fronts in the hole. We're excited. We're ready. Be nice when the sage grouse are done playing.
Beaver Rim is in Hils Area in the neighborhood
Yes.
of all important and major uranium players like Cameco, Encore Energy, UR Energy, UEC, Uranium
Right
Energy.
next to us.
Yeah, right next to you. How is the cooperation in this area with the local community and the companies I mentioned over here? How is the cooperation going?
Pretty well, I'd have to say. This was the biggest uranium mining area in the last boom. I was part of it with 2 companies, actually 3 companies. One, we buried the tailings from Riverton in their pit out there. Was on an underground and open pits. The ranchers, the townspeople, everybody's on board with development.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and the people should all the corporations should get together. I think they'll all get along well.
Yeah. John, what about Night Owl? That's a former producing uranium mine. Can you give us an overview of this project and some plans? I know that you are planning 60 holes for that project, but can you expand a little bit on the exploration program for this project?
Well, Night Owl was an odd property. Nobody really played with it much. I found it by taking this old gentleman up to the property to get his drill rig up there, and didn't know much about it. I brought it up to Terrence. He went out and said, hey, they dropped it. We picked it up. I said, well, let's go out and look around. Well, he went out before any of us got together, and he found ore on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 3800s. 0.38% U3O8 on the surface. We went out there, took a rig. It was a small, we used to call them jitterbugs rig out to drill. It wasn't meant for deep work. We got out there. We found, obviously, we had the surface mineralization. We started drilling, not knowing much. We didn't find minerals. We found mineralization in 2 holes. The rest of them, we drilled shallow. We drilled them deeper. Nothing was over, I think, 100 feet there. However, what we did do is give ourselves targets for this year. We found an area of oxidation where the original mineralizing solutions have moved through. This is a limestone property. It is not a roll front property. It's in the Madison limestone, which is a Mississippian age rock, a couple 100 million years old. Nobody knows much about it. We learned a lot last year. We learned where the mineralizing solutions went. We found some oxidized zones. We found some surface mineralization. We picked up another property to the northwest. We're going to put that in the drilling permit for this next year. So we're kind of excited about it. We were hoping the surface mineralization was 50 feet thick and it was just everywhere. Well, like any good geologist, we were a little optimistic. Okay. But I think we'll find out a lot this year. We've got some geophysicists that help us with F3 that are going to get involved from a technical aspect to help us explore.
Okay, so all 3 projects have planned exploration work for 2024. Yes. That is the important thing to say. Your company has teamed with the University of Wyoming near Surface Geophysical Center to complete research at the company's Agate and Night Owl projects in Shirley Basin Uranium District. How much progress has been made in this collaboration with the university?
Well, it's about a 2 to 3 year program. The grant that we won with them, they won it. We just provided the resource to play with. But they're at the end of their first year field work. They're putting their findings together right now. Well, not now. They're on Christmas break. Okay. But they will be doing that from now till next summer. And then they'll come out and do some more field work to fill in any holes that they may discover over the wintertime. We are in contact with Dr. Carr almost every week. He's got a good team. We've got 5 or 6 people working, and they're very optimistic that they're going to be able, through geophysics, to locate roll front deposits. So that's a big plus. It's a plus for the university and Dr. Carr, obviously. It's a plus for Strathmore because we've got properties that we'd like to explore, and it's a big help to the whole industry and the state. It's through the School of Mineral Resources, and that is their purpose, to help companies. And when I was in the school, the University of Wyoming, they didn't even talk about the uranium industry an hour and a half away. We didn't take any field trips there. They pretty much ignored it. Well, today it's a big part of the curriculum. We're happy with what they're doing.
Definitely. Final question, John. Do you see uranium rush in Wyoming? Do you see new companies coming, trying to stake land, trying to buy land? Do you see bigger action in the last 12 months in Wyoming?
That's a tough question to answer. I would expect more activity, but I think when the university gets done with their study, I think people will take that and look at other areas. The Phosphoria Formation in Wyoming contains billions of pounds of uranium, but it's such a low grade you can't process it right now. There's no mill. I expect to see the school take on exploration type work, which is what Dr. Carr and his group are doing with us. And I expect them to get into processing situations. It's a very good school, highly technical, great geology school. Not because I went there, but it's just a good geology school. and they're an hour and a half away. They have an interest, and their staff is from all over the world right now. So I expect increased levels of acquisition in Wyoming.
Okay, good to hear. That was John DeJoia, director for Strathmore Plus Uranium. John, this was great chat. I really enjoyed, especially the part where you told us your history, your very rich history in uranium. And thank you very much for being my guest.
Well, thank you. It was a real pleasure.